Hi there, hello, welcome to episode 8 of the Solo Traveler Adventure. It took a little longer to get this episode out than I had planned for a couple of reasons. You may have heard me say that in addition to being a professional dungeon master for kids, I'm also a puppeteer, and for the past month I was doing an artist-in-residence workshop at a local school, took up a lot of the free time, and the last video took a little longer to edit than I had planned, so that's why this has been such a long time before a new episode came out. Anyway, all that being said, let us jump back into the solo adventures of Anselm the Scout. Last time I asked you, where do I get that last time you recall, the way I always open my recap for the previous episode? I get that from the old Lost in Space TV show. If you remember that, yeah, you know, at the end of the episode, they would tease the next episode, and then the following week, they would start with that tease again, and before that, they would start with that great Dick Twofield voiceover.
Last week, as you recall. Last week, as you recall. Last week, as you recall.
So that's where I get it from. So, without further ado, last time, as you recall, Anselm and Symon had found the wreckage of the ISS Pursuit and were going to explore it, finding some large chunks. They did land the ISS Raven, but before Anselm could leave the Raven, they were hailed by a fighter, a Navy fighter from the planet of Zarasia that told them they were in a restricted area and they must leave immediately. However, Symon, using his diplomatic skills, did bluff the fighter pilot, telling them that no, they had orders to be there to do a survey of the wreckage of the Pursuit. Now, here's where I'm going to do a little bit of a retcon. Last time I did say that gave the fighter pilot pause, and he just kind of waited there as they left. Actually, I did remember as I was editing the other episode and looking over my notes that I did say that cloud layer that sort of covers over this ravine, it does inhibit radio frequencies and transmission. So what I'm going to say is, instead of him, the fighter pilot, just sort of hovering over there, he actually had to get above the cloud layer to radio Zarasia to say, are these guys supposed to be here, or are they just, full of so on and so forth? So while the fighter pilot left, I'm going to say that's when Anselm left the Raven and went into the wreckage and the remains of the ISS Pursuit. So right now, that Zarasian fighter is above the cloud layer that sort of covers this ravine. Anyway, Anselm did go into this large area, finding out it was a large wreck hall. However, he also found that a spear beast that he had seen before had made this part of the wreckage its lair, and it did zap Anselm with its spear tongue and inject its paralytic venom into Anselm. Anselm went limp as the creature drew him in, putting him aside for a snack to have later. However, Symon is blissfully unaware of this, enjoying his time on the Raven. How long will it be before Symon becomes wondering if something has happened to Anselm? We shall find out as we rejoin Anselm the Scout. Alright, since we ended last time, I am actually going to we haven't changed the scene, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm not going to change the chaos factor. I'm going to say we're in the same scene. I don't think we have any other characters or threads other than, will Anselm survive? But I'm going to leave the chaos factor at 6, so that's where we're going to start right now. Now, my first question is, this fighter from Zarasia has gone above the cloud layer to radio Zarasia to say, are these guys supposed to be here? Does he go up there and sort of wait for the response, or does he come back down below the cloud layer to monitor what's going on to make sure nothing hinky, there's no monkey business going on along with the remains, the wreckage of the Pursuit? That is going to be a mythic question, so let's find our mythic. We are at Chaos Factor 6. I'm going to say that's kind of, what would that be? Somewhat likely? I'm going to say 50-50. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, he could be above the cloud layer, waiting for a response, but also monitoring the area. So if the Raven did break that cloud layer and leave, he could find them. He could go after them. He's much faster. The fighter is much faster than the Raven, and I would say that the Raven would have to get a certain distance before it could even attempt a jump to get away. Also, I kind of imagine that any spaceship has a transponder, almost like a license plate, and the fighter has definitely taken down that transponder number, so they could send out an APB or at least put out a bulletin that they're looking for the ship. Anyway, all that being said, this is going to be a 50-50 chance. At a chaos factor of 6, that is 65% chance or less that, yes, he does come back down and watches over the Raven and the wreckage while waiting for his response to his message to come back. So let's see what we get. So this is a 65% chance or less that, yes, the fighter does come down and monitor what's going on. And what do we get? A 55, and a 55 means, yes, it comes down. It also is a random event. I keep forgetting when you roll doubles, and it is below the cast factor, which 5 is. A random event happens. Oh, this could be great or terrible. I don't think there's any middle ground. By the way, I always forget to do doubles, so I did make a note. Don't forget doubles. So that is the first roll is going to be doubles. So, first of all, the ship, the fighter ship, does lower back down through the cloud layer and does monitor the ISS Raven, which is on the ground next to this part of the pursuit, and just sort of watches to see what's going on. Now we have a random event. When we have a random event, we need to roll some more dice. So first of all, we roll on the event focus table. What is the focus of this event? Let us see. 42. 42 is move toward a thread. All right, interesting. We have a few threads right now. We have find Dad, Y where the space rocks at Tachalon, and find the contraband. Interesting. Okay. So towards a thread. There are 3 of them. I'm going to roll a 600 dice. So 1 and 2 find Dad. 3 and 4 Y where the rocks are on Tachalon. 5 and 6 find the contraband. Let's see. What do we get? A 6. So this is moving towards the thread of finding the contraband. Okay. So interesting. And then we do have the event meaning action. What is that? 13, decrease, and 93. Decrease weather. Decrease weather. Okay, the first thing that comes to mind for me is since we're dealing with this cloud layer that is covering over the ravine, I feel like that's what happens, and that helps us move towards a thread. Let's put all these together in my brain. Okay, so the cloud layer and the mist that sort of, we've talked about, that pervades and fills this ravine, does all of a sudden start to lift and start to thin out. And there is actually a little bit of, you can see through it. You can see actually up into the sky around the first planet here of the Zarasian system, which they have not been able to do before. So that is what happens. All of a sudden, it does thin out. We're not sure why, but it does thin out. I'm going to say the fact that okay. Okay, I think I have an idea here. So what I think happens is, yes, a lot of this mist around this area does start to thin out. I'm going to say the cloud layer thins out dramatically. As a matter of fact, as soon as the cloud layer thins out, a lot of the atmosphere that's down here starts going away, starts leaving, and Symon can see on the Raven that suddenly a lot of the plant life seems to be in distress. Some of the animals maybe that are moving around start to be in distress, and he does get very concerned. He hasn't seen or heard from Anselm, so this could be good for Anselm. He's like, oh, Anselm needs to get back to the ship. Something's happening. We need to we need to get back to the ship. We need to find out what's going on. So as suddenly the cloud layer does leave, something about the cloud layer keeps the atmosphere contained down in this rift. Doesn't seem like this is a natural phenomenon. The whole rift, the life, the cloud, everything. Anyway, so as the cloud layer does disperse, there is a little less atmosphere. It does register. There are monitoring instruments on the Raven, obviously, and it does start sounding an alarm that the pressure is dropping and the gases, the oxygen content of the area is dropping, and that gives Symon pause. It makes him worried, and he starts trying to get a hold of Anselm, which he cannot do because Anselm is currently unconscious. Now, I did decide, and if you watched the last episode with coming up with the animal encounters for this ravine, that the poison that has been injected in Anselm, you can roll to overcome it. You can roll to recover from it, but it is an endurance roll. Right now, Anselm's endurance is dropped down to 6, which will give him no bonus because I'm using the Cepheus Deluxe bonuses for stats. So I'm going to say, again, it's an 8 or more. With this drop in pressure and drop in atmosphere, will that help him, shock him to awareness? Again, I'm just going to say it's an 8 or more. So let's roll and see if something about this does wake Anselm up. Alright, so again, 2d6, 8 or more. Anselm has no bonuses because, again, his endurance is currently 6. What do we get? 4 plus 2 is 7. No. Anselm does not wake up. As a matter of fact, he's in even more danger now because the pressure is dropping. Let's see. I feel like Symon might go out to... Or would he ask the... Would he ask the fighter to check? I'm going to roll that on a mythic question as well, because he does get the alarm, get the alert that the atmosphere is changing, that the oxygen content is dropping. Symon knows this is not what he does. It's why he hired Anselm the Scout to begin with. So he might actually contact the fighter pilot. Let's see if he does that. That is going to be... I'm going to say that's likely, actually. I'm going to say he might say, hey, look, while you were gone... Anyway, that is going to be an 85% chance or less that, yes, he does contact the fighter pilot. So let's see, does he do that? 80. All right, so yes, he does. Symon does quickly go over to the console, flip on the communication switch, contacting the Zarasian fighter. The Zarasian fighter does come on the line. Yes? What is it? And Symon says, as I'm sure your systems have alerted you to, something has happened to the atmosphere. You've probably noticed the cloud cover has greatly dispersed, and now I'm reading that the atmosphere, we're starting to get to a vacuum, and a lot of the oxygen is going away. I am slightly concerned about my compatriot. I'm sorry, why are you concerned about your compatriot? Well, of course, since we are under orders to do a survey of the wreckage, my compatriot did go out and just do a quick look around at the largest piece, straight across from where we landed. Excuse me, you were told that this is a restricted area. Yes, of course. But as I said, we are under orders, and I knew you would probably need to get verification about that from Zarasia. And of course, we didn't want to waste the time. We were so eager, you understand. Of course, being a scout, he always wants to see the new thing. One of the downsides of the service, don't you know? But yes, he did go in there and did a little bit of looking around, I believe, but I've not heard from him. I'm a bit concerned for his well-being. If you would be a good fellow and land your ship, just take a quick look inside and make sure everything is all right. Now, is this fighter pilot going to do that? Can Symon convince the fighter pilot to go search for Anselm before whatever's happening finishes? I'm going to say that's going to be a roll using the Traveler rules, using Symon's skills. I don't think it's going to be a mythic roll. He does have admin. I feel like that's talking more to bureaucracy, but I feel like maybe he knows what to say and can slightly appeal to this fighter pilot's sense of duty. Maybe? That's what I'm going to say at least. So that's going to be 2 dice. He gets a +1, but I am going to say this is going to be tough. I'm going to say he's going to have to roll a 10 or more for the fighter pilot to land and go searching for Anselm. Otherwise, it will be up to Symon. We will see how that goes. All right, so there's going to be... Grab 2d6, 10 or more with a +1 for his admin. What happens? No. So 5 plus 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7. The fighter pilot says, you were instructed not to leave the ship. If your shipmate, your companion, has left the ship and has run into foul play or has some sort of distress, that is one of the reasons why it is a restricted area. This is your mess, basically. Symon, with not a word, turns off the communication channel, and Symon decides that he is going to have to go check for Anselm, because Symon can potentially pilot the ship if he needs to, but Symon leaving Anselm here could raise even more questions, so he's going to have to go find what's going to happen. Okay, let's see. Maybe Symon gets zapped with the Spear Beast as well. Symon's really not made for this, so let's see what's going to happen. So Symon does enter this piece of wreckage of the ISS Pursuit. He does have some sort of flashlight to check the whole area. He does have what few things that he has. Symon does not have any weapons. He does not have anything like that. But perhaps when Anselm was hit by the Spear Beast and paralyzed, perhaps he dropped his shotgun. Maybe so. That will be a mythic question. But as he comes in, first of all, Symon does come in. First of all, does he find the shotgun? Because he's kind of in the same position Anselm was, or not too far, when he came in. So does he see that? I am going to make that a mythic roll. I'm going to see as Anselm slowly creeps into this piece of wreckage and flashes his flashlight around. Does he see Anselm's shotgun lying there where Anselm dropped it? Let's find out with a mythic roll. Again, chaos factor 6. I'm going to say it's likely because Anselm would have been right there. I would say he dropped it. So let's see what happens. That is going to be a 42 yes. Not an extreme yes, not an exception yes, but yes. As Symon slowly plays his light around this interior of this wreckage, seeing quickly that it is an old rec room where the crew was meant to kick back and enjoy themselves. He does see lying there a shotgun, and it's not long before he realizes that this is Anselm's. Symon gets very worried about that. He knows something has happened to Anselm, and whatever happened may still be here. Ugh. All right, Anselm grabs this. Not Anselm. Let me change it. Symon grabs the shotgun. He does move over, quickly picking up the shotgun, holding it closely as if to protect himself. And, shoot, I keep saying Anselm. Symon, again, not really a martial guy. Diplomacy is his weapon. But right now, he's very happy to have the shotgun. So he is also still holding the shotgun, playing light around, trying to see if he can see where Anselm's in here or anything that might be in here. It occurs to me that now that this whole atmospheric phenomenon is happening, the creature may not be here. We know the creature doesn't move very fast, but it can move, and it may have left once it felt the oxygen leaving or the pressure changing or whatever's happening. It may have gotten out of here. It just may gotten out of here. So I'm going to roll that as a mythic question too, but I'm going to say it's 50-50. With the chaos factor of 6, again, 65% chance or less. Yes, it has left. Yes, actually the creature has left. The creature sensed what was going on. The creature, the self-preservation instinct did kick in, and it did leave. Whew, okay, that's actually good for Anselm and for Symon. So the creature was here. It was kind of looking around before Symon arrived, and when it felt everything changing, it did get away. Realizing that it could find another place to lair and find more food. So leaving the other paralyzed prey that that had sort of sequestered away. I'm going to say that he does look around. I'm going to say it doesn't take long because this is very large. He does find Anselm. He does find Anselm. Should I make that a roll? No, I don't think I should make that a roll. Yeah. And as Symon looks around this part of the ISS Pursuit, he is shocked and surprised when he sees Anselm over near the corner, lying there prone, not moving. Symon fears the worst as he slowly creeps forward, again playing his light everywhere, making sure that there's nothing in the shadows, just waiting to pounce upon him. However, nothing does, and as Symon gets closer, he does realize that there are a few other creatures, some of those deer creatures we saw earlier, and a couple other things that the spear beast has paralyzed that are there waiting to be devoured, and a few remains of things that have been meals previously. He does see Anselm. He kneels down, checks his pulse, slaps him. Anselm, oh dear, are you all right? Are you all right? And he's able to find, well, let's just see, can he tell? That's not something that he has, so we're going to use Jack of all trades, which gives him a 0. Can he tell if Anselm, can you tell what's wrong with Anselm? Let's figure that out. I'm going to say with him that's going to be a 10 or more. Does he figure out what happens to Anselm? No, he has no idea. But he does realize that Anselm is still alive. He is not dead because he can tell that there is a very weak, very slow pulse because he is paralyzed from this venom, and there is very shallow, slow breathing. So Symon will be able to grab a hold of Anselm and drag him out. And even though it takes a while, because Anselm is just dead weight, Symon isn't terribly weak. He's about average strength, so he is able to grab a hold of Anselm and just with strength and determination, get Anselm back onto the ISS Raven, throw him into one of the bunks, do what he can for him, trying to make him comfortable, and he does contact the fighter pilot again. Fighter pilot, I have found my companion. He is in some sort of distress. I'm not sure if he's been attacked. I'm not sure what is happening. I'm going to say that Symon would be able to tell there is a wound on Anselm. He would see where the spear beast barb did strike Anselm. So he does see that, and maybe there's like a greenish, purplish bruise, or maybe something that sort of gives him an idea that there is some sort of venom in him. Maybe. But he does see the wound, definitely. So Symon is talking to the fighter pilot, and he does say, yes, fighter pilot, I have found my companion. He has been injured. And, Yes, I've been able to get him back aboard our ship. And the fighter pilot clicks on and he says, understood, and turns off his communications. Symon says something about the fighter pilot that I don't want to repeat right here because I want it to be a family show. But yes, he does get him back on the ship. Now, Symon has a couple of options. He could stay where they are and wait for the information to come back to the fighter that no, they're not supposed to be there. He could also try to revive Anselm himself, even though that's not in his wheelhouse, as they say. Or he could try to leave before the fighter gets the information that they're not supposed to be there. And I kind of feel like that's what Symon would do. Kind of feel like that's what he's going to do. First, I think he will try to do something for Anselm, to arouse him, to wake him back up, to get him conscious again, maybe figure out what he's going to do. Again, this is not a skill that Symon has. He is using his jack-of-all-trades for this, which means he has basically a 0 in medic. So that's going to be, I'm going to say again, it's going to be a 10 or more. I'm going to use, I'm going to say it's going to be a 10 or more for him to do that. Is he able to at least make Anselm conscious again? Let's see, can he do that? No, he cannot. Anselm continues to be unconscious. Again, the breathing is slow, the pulse is slow, but he is alive, and Symon realizes that they should probably get out of here if they can. So Symon is going to go back to the cockpit, and he is going to try to get out of here before the fighter pilot gets information that they're not supposed to be here. Now, the question is the fighter pilot going to allow them to leave? He might keep them there. That is going to be a role as well. That's going to be an admin role. And I'm going to say that's going to be a 10 or more. Because, again, they're not supposed to be there, and Symon has bluffed him. So the fighter pilot kind of wants to make sure that they're still there. So Symon does get on the comms again, talks to the fighter pilot. Fighter pilot to Zarasia. Once again, this is the ISS Raven. Yes, my companion seems to be extremely hurt. He requires immediate medical attention. I will leave this planet. I shall take him quickly to Zarasia, where he can get the finest medical attention, make sure he is hale and hearty, and then we will begin our survey of the wreckage again. Will the fighter pilot believe that? Let's see. That's going to be a 10. Yes. Symon the silver-tongued devil does it again, and the fighter pilot, for a few minutes, he does say, very well, ISS Raven, you are cleared to leave. And the fighter pilot does sort of back off a little bit. Doesn't leave, but he does back off a little bit. Now, here's the other difficulty. Symon really doesn't know how to pilot a ship. He kind of knows a little bit, but not 100%. So can he actually get out of here? That's going to be a role, a piloting role. And I'm going to say that is going to be an 8 or more. So is he able to do that? And again, using jack of all trades. So can he pilot the ship enough to get it out? And then, we may have to roll to see if he knows how to use the jump drive. Let's see what happens here, though. That's going to be a 10. All right, yeah, so Symon, confident, even when he shouldn't be, when he has no reason to be, utterly confident, does. Remember how some other ships he's been on have operated? He remembers watching Anselm. Anselm is the scout, Symon is diplomat, Anselm's unconscious, Symon is still doing stuff. Symon the Diplomat has seen Anselm operate and fly the ISS Raven, so he does flip on all the appropriate switches, pushes the appropriate buttons, pushes the buttons for the thrusters. They do take off. It is not a pretty takeoff, but it is a liftoff. They do wobble a little bit. They do raise up to a certain amount of height. They do turn their nose out of the cloud cover, and they do leave. I sort of feel like he is not going back to Zarasia. I kind of feel like Symon would get somewhere totally away from Zarasia. Even though they may have the transponder code number for the ISS Raven, you know, if he's back at Zarasia and people are looking for them, maybe they want to be where they can find them easily. I think you know what I'm trying to say very, very clumsily. So yeah, he is going to actually try to do a jump, and he does leave. Does the fighter follow them? That's a good question, because the fighter may want to follow them, make sure they actually are going back to Zarasia while he's waiting for this information to come back. Is he going to follow them? I'm going to say it's somewhat likely, actually. So that's going to be an 80% chance or less that, yeah, the fighter's going to follow them and see where they actually go. And that is a 12, yes. So that is actually a somewhat likely 80-12 is an exceptional yes. An exceptional yes. As a matter of fact, the fighter stays right behind them the entire time. Symon is planning to make a jump. He doesn't want to stay around the Zarasian system. He wants to leave, get Anselm healed up, and then come back, hopefully without anybody knowing that they return. And the fighter pilot isn't going to let them get away that easily. He is going to follow them, so he is going along behind them. Symon realizes that this fighter pilot is staying behind them and pacing them everywhere they go. All right, so in that case, Symon has to make the determination. Is he going to try to make a jump? He would have to be outside of, 10 or 100 planetary diameters of this planet, I think, to actually safely make a jump. How far would that be, and how long would it take him to get there? So how big is this world? When I was rolling up the animals, I said it's big enough where they don't have any modifiers, because I never rolled up the size. So how big is that? Let's look. We're going to check a couple of things. Let's go to the animal encounters tables on page 94. There was no modifier between size 4 and size 8. Okay. So that's somewhere between that is what our planet is. Somewhere between the two of those. Let's see. Between 4 and 8. Let's just say it's 6. It's planetary size 6. So let's now go back to the typical travel time table on page 54. And safe jump distance from a size 6 world at 2G is 230 minutes. Yeah, so they're not going to get away. He realizes that fighter ship is far faster than they are. If Symon does try to go to a safe jump distance, he will not be able to make it. So he does grudgingly turn the nose of the ship towards Zarasia and does start to head that way. Okay, not exactly what they wanted to have happen. Meanwhile, does Anselm wake up from this paralytic poison? That is going to be, as I said, an endurance roll. And actually, let me take a step back. I'm wrong about that, because after a few minutes, he actually does heal a little bit, because he has minor wounds according to the rules. Let me go. I'm just going to let you guys see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go to the unconscious. Let's see, unconscious characters. This is on page 36. So according to page 36 in the Traveler book, it does say at the top of the left column, unconscious characters with at least one characteristic reduced to 0 recover consciousness after 10 minutes, 40 combat rounds, with all 3 physical characteristics temporarily placed at a value halfway between full strength and the wounded level. The individual is considered to have sustained minor wounds. So normally he would be conscious, but because he does have the poison in him, I'm going to say he still has to make an endurance roll. His characteristics will go up where they normally would be for healing, but he will not necessarily be conscious. So first thing we're going to do is going to see, does Anselm become conscious after the 10 minutes, after he is on the ship and traveling to Zarasia? That is going to be, I said 8 or more. He is still at, I will say still at 6 and no bonus. What do we get? An 8. So he does wake up as they are continuing on. Anselm slowly, very groggily, starts waking up. His eyelids flutter. He slowly opens his eyes. For a while, his vision is quite blurry. But after a few moments, it does. Everything comes into focus. And he sees that he is not where he expected. He is not in the lair of the spear beast on the wreckage of the ISS Pursuit. No, he is actually in his own bunk in his stateroom in the ISS Raven, because he can see all of his stuff around there. He is very, very surprised. He immediately starts to get up, a little wobbly. He does leave his cabin and heads towards the bridge. It doesn't take long for him to realize that they are underway. They are flying with maneuver drives, and he does stagger into the cockpit, where he sees Symon at the controls, directing the ship. What happened? Symon does quickly turn around, and with no small amount of joy stands up and says, Anselm, oh, thank all that is good and holy that you are alive, and conscious at the moment. Oh, well, wonderful, wonderful. Anselm, still not terribly steady on his feet, starts to sag. Symon grabs him and puts him down in one of the other chairs that are in the cockpit and explains to him what exactly has happened. Not long after you left, I was speaking to the fighter pilot, and he was very unconcerned exactly what had happened to you. While you were gone, a strange phenomenon happened. The clouds that covered the entire ravine started to clear, and the atmosphere started to lessen. The oxygen content started to decrease, and I started getting all these alerts and alarms on the console here. I became quite concerned about your well-being, so I did go inside. I did find your shotgun. He sort of shows that he has that. He has put that in the weapons locker. And he says, and I sadly found your prone form there lying in the corner. I was able to grab you and bring you back onto the ship. And we are currently underway back to Zarasia. Well, I was attacked by one of those. You remember the spear beast thing that we saw on the side of the lake? One of those attacked me. Apparently they have some kind of paralyzing venom in them. And yeah, I thank you so much. I was not sure that I was going to make it out of there. Of course, I'm not through with you yet. No, I've actually given quite a bit of cash to make sure this endeavor is successful, and I am not going to let you out of your agreement quite so easily. So Symon does tell him, yes, we're going to Zarasia. Honestly, not my first choice of a destination, but our friend the fighter pilot seems quite keen on making sure that we actually do go to Zarasia, other than some other system, which would be my preference, to be honest. Yeah, so Anselm nods. He sort of realizes the predicament they're in, and they do continue on kind of in silence. Anselm does take over the piloting of the ship. They do continue on. I'm just going to roll because why not? We're going to see, do they have an encounter as they get closer to Zarasia? So let's find the ship encounter table. So again, page 75, Traveler Book, Possible Ship Encounters. We're coming up to Zarasia, which does have an A-class starport. There is a Navy base there, which will give us a couple of bonuses. Yeah, do they find anything? Let's roll the 2d6. So A-class starport and naval base gives us a +2. What do we get? That's 11 plus 2 is going to be a 13. And a 13 is M, which stands for a subsidized liner. And there is an asterisk, which indicates a small craft encounter occurs in addition. What is our small craft? We have a D6 table. Who'd imagine that? Well, let's roll that. We get a +1 again because there is a Navy base. What do we get? A 1 plus 1 is 2. That is a slow boat. A slow boat. So as they come close, there is a slow boat. There is a subsidized liner. I guess really, as usual, I do roll to see what is their attitude to another ship, or what is the ship's attitude to them, to be more specific. So let's go ahead and find that reaction table, which is with the encounters. There we are. So now page 101, what is their reaction? Looking on 101, there should be a DM of -1 because the population of Zarasia is 9 or better. And a +1 if he had 5 terms in the Army, Navy, and Scouts, which I believe Anselm did. He had Scouts. So they're going to sort of cancel each other out. So what is their attitude to the ISS Raven? 3. Hostile. Attack on 5 or more. Anselm can't catch a break. Do they attack? I mean, now luckily, and hopefully, if the liner attacks the Raven, then the fighter, who we've said is very close, will step in and hopefully stop what's going on. Let's see what happens here. It is going to be, okay, a 9. Yeah, a 9. So I'm going to say that's exactly what happens. I'm going to say, actually, as the Raven is coming into the system, in a spot, again, where there's not a lot of traffic, there is a subsidized liner that is apparently going on about its business when suddenly it does make a very definite course change, heading for the ISS Raven. There are weapons being powered up that are zeroing in on the Raven, and as Anselm and Symon can feel the tenseness rising in their body as Anselm quickly starts moving his hands over the controls to try to outmaneuver the subsidized liner and get away from them, because again, they still don't have any weapons in the ISS Raven. When that happens, they do see the fighter pilot go zinging past them to interpose itself between the liner and the ISS Raven. And it does contact the subsidized liner, saying, "Subsidized liner, this is Zarasian fighter. You are cease hostilities, power down your weapons, continue on your way, or I will be forced to engage you in combat. Do you wish to continue?" Are they going to continue? I'm going to say they probably won't. I mean, if it was just the Raven, then maybe. If it was the fighter, since this fighter's here, maybe a little less keen on getting into some ship-to-ship combat. But I'm going to roll. I'm just going to see, are they willing to leave? What is that going to be? Is that going to be a mythic roll? I think that's going to be a mythic roll. I think that would be the smartest thing to do. I'm going to say that is... I'm going to say it's I'm going to say it's likely. Again, chaos factor of 6, I'm going to say it's likely, 85% chance or less that, yes, they do decide to leave. And probably pretty quickly. All right, 42, yeah. So they decide quickly when they see this Zarasian fighter, they didn't notice it in their scanners, but they quickly notice it as it rushes forward, and it does quickly power down the weapons, it turns, and it quickly leaves. The fighter does pursue them for a little bit, getting all the information it can about this liner, because it was going to fire on the Raven. Who is this? Is this the same people that Ren were a part of, or is this yet another faction that is trying to stop Symon? Questions upon questions upon questions. Anyway, does Anselm take this moment to leave? Because again, Symon doesn't want to really go to Zarasia, because then it'll be quickly found out that, no, they weren't supposed to be there, which could create some legal hassles for them. But they're very close. And now, you know what? As much as Symon would like to get out of here, he actually realizes, and Anselm would tell him that no, they cannot outrun a Zarasian fighter. Even though it is kind of preoccupied with the subsidized liner, yeah, they still can't get away this close to Zarasia. And they could send more fighters to intercept them, and they would not get away from these Zarasian fighters. So much to Symon's disappointment, they do arrive at the Class A starport, the orbital starport around the Zarasian system. They do dock with no problems, no drama. They do disembark from the ISS Raven. When they do, they are quickly met by a group of Zarasian security officers. One of them says, "We are here to take you into custody for violation of restricted area protocols. Come with me." And many of these security officers do surround Anselm and Symon, and with a brief look at each other, Symon giving a small little and Anselm furrowing his brow ever so slightly, they are led off to the security wing of the starport. And that is where we leave our hero Anselm. Will they be able to get away from this incarceration? How long will it last? Can they answer the questions that the security personnel will pose to them? We shall find out next time! Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Didn't go anything like I thought it might, but that's the beauty of rolling randomly on Mythic. That's one of the things I really, really love about doing this. Anyway, again, hope that was enjoyable, and hopefully before too long, I will see you again.